Good evening, everyone. We're going to open up the
Recording
Planning
in
Commission-
progress.
Interrupted something. We're going to open up the Planning Commission meeting for Columbus, and the date is February 2nd, 2022. If everybody stand up, we'll pledge allegiance.
Used to go on that one.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to go on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is a motion. If somebody can approval of the meeting agenda for tonight.
This is Barb Bobick, so moved.
This is Bob, second.
All right. Since we got 2, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Chris, aye.
Bob, aye.
Ron, aye.
Barb, aye.
All right, for the next 4 through 11 agenda items, we're going to make it one motion because Chris wasn't here. Chris, on 12 and 13, Chris wasn't here. So we're going to do all 4 through 11 at one time. So, and this is approval of the July 21, 2021 Planning Commission meetings that whole night. So would anybody like to make a motion to approve 4 through 11?
This is Barb, so moved.
I'll second it. Having 2, anybody want to make a discussion or any problems with issues through 4 through 11? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Chris?
Abstain.
Bob, aye.
Ron, aye.
Barb, aye.
We'll go to item number, agenda number 12, the motion. Approval of January 5th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Anybody want to make a motion on that?
This is Barb, so moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Chris, aye.
Bob, aye.
Ron, aye.
Barb, aye.
Go to agenda item number 13. Approval of January 5th, 2022 public hearing minutes, Northeast Quad 35, second edition, preliminary and final plat. Anybody want to make a motion?
This is Bob, so moved.
This is Chris, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Chris?
Chris, aye.
Bob, aye.
Ron, aye.
Barb, aye.
We'll go to item number 14 on the agenda. It's a public hearing and discussion. 24-32-22-11-008, Lot 1, Block 1, Northeast Quad 35, second edition, variance request, E&R Investments, parentheses Greg Hayes, agenda pages 1 through 27, and enclosure pages 1 through 2, and handout pages 1 through 8. Carissa, would you read the notice as published?
Yep. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the City of Columbus Planning Commission on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as parties may be heard, and will be conducted in an interactive technology format and held at the Columbus City Hall located at 16319 Kettle River Boulevard, Minnesota, to consider a variance request from the required 80% masonry design standard to approximately 30% and to vary from the required earth tone color requirements. Further, the variance is requested to consider the installation of decorative lights without the need to meet the requirements of Section 7A-813B in the mixed-use high-density district. Members of the public interested in attending in person or monitoring the meetings should contact city offices at 651-464-3120 or visit the city website for information at columbusmn.us. The hearing shall continue until all evidence and testimony has been received. The applicant is E&R Investments, Greg Hayes. Property owner is City of Columbus. Property location, vacant lot, PIN number 243222110008. Legal description as written, signed Elizabeth Mersko, Zoning Administrator. Submitted to the Forest Lake Times on January 10th, 2022, published in the Forest Lake Times, and posted January 20th, 2022.
Thank you, Carissa. At this time, for the record, would Greg Hayes, the applicant representing E&R Investment, acknowledge their presence and state their name and current address? If you could have a seat up there by the microphone.
Good evening, Planning Commission Chair, members. Greg Hayes representing E&R Investments, 23350 County Road 10, Corcoran, Minnesota, 55357.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's great you're here tonight. We received your application concerning the three variance issues regarding your Caribou Cabin site plan application. As a normal protocol, and for the record, could you brief us a little about these issues or these variance issues?
Yes, I'm here this evening requesting the variance for the items outlined, which is the less than 80% stone, the color, the corporate color, and there's a little bit of conflict in the ordinance about the wall-mounted coach lights that we discussed quite a bit at the last Planning Commission. So a variance was recommended for those because they're a decorative light, to not have a cutoff fixture on them. And that's why I'm here tonight. The Caribou Cabin is a corporate design, corporate colors, corporate image, and it's a real, as mentioned before, it's a very high quality, very durable material supplies and product information has been supplied to staff. And it's not a cost structure. It actually costs the same or more to build this design than the ordinance. So that's why we're requesting the variance. I'm happy to expand on any of that if any of the members of the Planning Commission so choose.
Thank you, Greg. Also, for the record, the city associate planner, Ben Gutnick, prepared a report dated February 1st, 2022 concerning the variance request. Did you receive a copy of this report? And do you have any questions or comments concerning the staff's variance findings or recommendations on page 2 through 6 of the report?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Well, then we're going to open up the floor to the commission members if they have any comments or questions about this variance. Chris, or?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Hayes. You know, I read your letter and your answer to the questions, and I think one thing I would really like you to address, in order to grant a variance, you have to meet the practical difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read just your response on the special conditions and circumstances and that, I'm not getting enough feeling of what difficulty there really is there. I think part of it is you're claiming the corporate look in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would really like you to articulate what these difficulties are if we don't pass this grant, in order to pass this variance.
Sure. From a corporate look standpoint, it's brand and brand image. And the design with the 80% stone would not reflect that brand image. And Caribou Corporate, as you heard at the previous Planning Commission and Council meetings, has a lot of branding and efforts and time into their image. So to convey that and project that, people see that from a ways away and say, oh, that's a Caribou, let's go there. I believe the spirit of a variance always is does it detract from quality? Does it detract from similar quality facilities and maintain a high, vibrant, active commercial area for a city? And this product does that. So I don't know if I'm answering that directly.
Well, I think you're answering in the fact that it's the Caribou corporate look that you're trying to convey. You know, the funny thing is, yesterday, and I don't know if all of you guys sat through that webinar, or if you looked at, it was on, a lot on variances. And I think every time we sit through this, we realize sometimes variances are misused. So for us as a city to grant a variance, and I think the city staff did a very good job of putting together their documentation, but to me, the important thing is that our applicant really stresses what the difficulties are and why we should grant a variance. Because typically, from what I've understand, variances are more set with setbacks and certain things, that it really isn't the quality of products, more so it's meeting the difficulties. So again, I think your big thing is you don't want to, you want the corporate look of Caribou. The Caribou Cabin is kind of a new concept that you're going with and that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Sure, sure. I think the hardest part for cities is they don't know what every corporation brand or image or materials are. And cities being flexible by offering a variance opportunity allows cities to review and consider that option. And I too believe, and so does Caribou believe, that it's maintaining the highest quality materials and the highest quality design, which then carries through to their product branding and image. So you go to Caribou and you're going to get a high quality product. You know that when you drive through. And cities are always concerned about maintaining good buildings, good images, because that projects on everything else that happens in your city and reflects on everybody in the city and the other commercial businesses too.
That all you have, Chris?
For now,
Bob, you have anything you want to ask? Greg?
Yeah, I'm going to pass for now.
Barb?
Well, my concern is that we created these 3 mixed-use zoning areas to have the highest standards in performance standards and operating early, late hours and lighting restrictions. And to me, it just doesn't fit. So that's my concern.
Well, you want to hold that for, you have any questions for Greg?
No.
Okay, we'll have that in our discussion afterwards. If nobody has any other questions for Mr. Hayes, we're going to open up the public hearing to the public. Anyone who has an interest in this matter and wants to present testimony as evidence on the issue, please acknowledge themselves by stating their name and address, after which you have the floor to speak. And this goes for everybody present in the council chambers here and anybody who may be online or zooming in. So you have the floor. Anybody who wants to stand up and announce their name and address, you can speak. Well, having no one coming forth, we'll close the public hearing and open up for discussion by the Planning Commission. So, who wants to give their thoughts? Who would like to start off? Chris has said something. Bob, do you have anything?
Yeah, you know, when I look at the proposal in front of us for the variance request, and I look at the marketing aspects of a company, to me, that's something of consideration. And I think that from my perspective, the fact that it's not really clear in our ordinances whether hardy board is considered a masonry product or not, to me, it does fit the definition of a masonry 80% coverage of the exterior. And so from my perspective, I have no issue with what is being proposed.
Well, I'll give my 2 cents. I look at the variance and I did watch that, or go to attend that class they had, the League of Cities, and I listened to variances, and I think variances are there for a reason. And there was one thing that was said during that program, that if you grant a variance, I mean, I look at it in that northeast quad area, is someone going to walk along and say, oh, what's this doing here? You know, I don't see that. I see there's 3 things: the color, the concrete, and the lighting. I don't think they're that big of issues for that area. I think Caribou Coffee came before the cart. In other words, we're waiting for bigger things to come in, and usually when big things come in my mind, the little things come, the little businesses follow. It's like if you ever look at a McDonald's or something, what's sitting next to them usually is holiday stations. One puts it in and the other one follows. And I look at this variance and I don't think it's that big of an issue. I mean, we could pinpoint the lighting. It meets the deal. It just doesn't, which I think, Chris, you brought up. The shroud is just a word in the ordinance. I mean, that's all it is a word that could be changed. I think a lot of us looked at the concrete when he had the design with the concrete. I don't know, I heard a lot of, that doesn't look very pleasant. And so we're left with the color, and I do believe that branding a business when you're driving down the road, and it's like seeing the golden arches, you know that's a McDonald's. If you see Love Trucking or Love Travel Center, you see their sign, you know them a mile away. So I really, that's my point on these 3 little, I call them little variances. I don't think they're going to cause problems in the future, but that's my point. Barb?
I already said
Oh.
what, my concern is.
Okay.
That area was supposed to be kind of the pearl, one of the pearls. And if you grant them 2 variances right off the bat, doesn't that open the opportunity for others when they come in there? And then we've kind of destroyed what we worked so long to arrive at. I remember those meetings. We talked about what kind of earth tones we wanted. If we wanted them to be neutral, did we want them to be in the browns and the beiges? So it just seems to me like somebody comes in and they want caribou blue, and so you give them a variance, and, the lighting supposed to, these are the highest standards to avoid conflicts for who's ever in that area. And already you're changing to allow a variance, and it's supposed to be for planned unit development. And there's nothing planned about this.
Okay, thank you.
This is Bob. I'd like to come back to the lighting and address that. From my perspective, they're decorative lighting, and I see no reason that they're going to affect as a nuisance to the surrounding neighbors. I don't see a need for shrouding around the lights. And I think, when we talk about variance requests to existing standards and city ordinances, I think the sole reason and the healthy community has that ability to evaluate certain projects based on certain criteria. And I think this is the task of the Planning Commission, to be able to look at things in a way that makes good decisions using the best information at hand. We're not going to be able to write ordinances that address everything. Thus the reason for the Planning Commission to have the ability to discuss it. And so that's my 2 cents related to that.
Thank you, Bob. Chris, you got something?
I do. This is Chris. and Barb, I think this goes to you. One thing I'm concerned about, and I agree, we spent 2 years looking at this area, and did we think a building like this would come in? No. I mean, the world has changed a lot, and we have a small lot up there, and it requires a small building on there. So to me, what are our new ordinances and design standards? Does that reflect this type of building? It doesn't. But I also feel by allowing variances right off the bat with this sets a precedence. And I think as a city, we do need to be concerned about that because we have, in my opinion, we have this application in front of us. And if we grant the variance just because we think it belongs there without really setting a good record on why, we're opening ourselves up, in my opinion, to other applications and buildings coming in saying, we want 30%, you gave 30% to them. I mean, I think we need to look at our ordinances because I don't believe variants are used at every application. I believe we need to look at the ordinance, and if the ordinance needs to change to go with the thoughts and the different things that are coming about. And this is different. I never thought about something like this coming in when we spent those 2 years. So I think we need to look at the ordinance. And I know I've made a big deal out of the lighting ordinance, but I've had problems with neighbors with the lighting ordinance. And because we feel a shroud is not necessary doesn't mean we ignore the ordinance. The ordinance is written, and if we don't like the ordinance and it doesn't apply, then we should change the ordinance to adapt to what we think it should be with the reasons documented so that we have it in there, because I don't think we should use a variance just to say, well, I think this should go in and this is the way it is. I think this is setting precedents. And this is setting the tone for that area. This is the first, other than Love's across the street, building being built up there. And it goes totally different than what I ever imagined, to tell you the truth. We were looking at apartments and bigger buildings, so when we were looking at the 80%, it was based on larger facilities. And do we come back and look at our ordinance and say, you know, maybe we look at 1,000-square-foot buildings and less with a different percentage of masonry? And I was getting kind of lost in all this because I was focusing on the hardy board, and the hardy board really isn't the issue here. It's reducing the masonry to 30%, which your veneer or your stone wainscot meets the 30%. The hardy board's a totally different issue because we talked about that quite a bit in our meetings, and that might be something we got to look at differently with the way the ordinance is written. And the way hardy board, is it a masonry product? Is it not a masonry product? Because we don't address that as a masonry product in our ordinance, but that's not the issue here. So I don't think that applies today. Am I correct?
In saying that the Hardy Board is not masonry, correct? That is,
That's not one of the conditions. That
No,
just
this was-
goes to that the building has quality products
correct.
in it. So I am concerned about precedence, and I don't have a problem with this building. I think to meet 80% on this small of a building really would look not right up in that area. I mean, it just would not capture what we're trying to portray. And the color, I don't know, I think that's another item we need to address is corporate colors. And, you know, do we allow a certain percentage or whatever? I did do a little digging, and I did find places where they were saying blue is being considered an earth tone nowadays. Now, is that one person's perception? I mean, we can find that from we can find people's opinions always match what they want it to match, so that. But those are my concerns, is we are setting precedents here. We need to be careful on that. And we need to make sure that if we grant the variances, this variance, that we address the issues on why we're granting it. And do we want to go forward changing some of our work? I mean, we spent 2 years. We're going to spend more time. I think Dean and Ben both have said this document is a fluid document, and it's going to be changing forever because we can't think of everything. So those are some of my concerns.
Thank you, Chris. I agree with some of your issues. I'm not too concerned about variances. I had a variance 30 years ago. And I was the first one that came in here to have a garage built in front of my house. And if you look at them now, there's a lot of them out there. Sometimes people hold the line and they draw a line. And we didn't know that this small building, we didn't. I remember when we discussed the concrete and that, we all thought big things were going in there. And like I said, this is a smaller building. The color, I think the lot where it sits off to the east. It's the farthest east lot. I guess I'm trying to say is I just don't have a lot of issues with the color, but it could be earth tone. The lights, like I said, but I agree with you about maybe altering these ordinances. And I don't know what the legal status is or what, if after we grant this variance, if you can change or put an amendment on it on the size of the building that goes in to these places can have less than that 80% on the concrete and et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's something the council's got to address if they want to go down that route. So that's
Mr.
my
Chair?
2 cents.
City Administrator Elizabeth Mursko, I believe, has a comment.
I'm sorry, what?
City Administrator Elizabeth Mursko, I believe, has a comment.
Can't
Oh.
understand what he said. What did he say?
Elizabeth has a comment.
Oh, yes, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Well, good evening, Planning Commission members. This is Elizabeth Mursko, City Administrator. I think there's another fundamental question that I think we need to answer, which is alluding to what Chris King was talking about in building the materials. And I can tell you in the past, when we have looked at buildings and we've looked at this criteria of masonry, we've looked at not just finished materials, but we've looked at what the building is made out of. And so when we look at tip-up panels or we look at some of the other buildings that are built in the district, they are truly masonry, and they're masonry built buildings. And in this particular case, and Greg can correct me or not, but you have hardy board, which is, a cement board, which I understand. And then you have stone veneer. So I'm thinking that the building materials are going to be more wood, wood materials with veneer and hardy board attached, which is not a masonry building. But fundamentally, if that's where the Planning Commission is going and we are changing the building type, then we chances are we won't have tip-up panels and we won't have that kind of building, because that's a rather spendy, that's more spendy than the materials here. So I think we have to change some of the definitions if that's what we're going to accept, and we're classifying all those materials as the same. Because when you look at the Gander Mountain building, that is complete masonry built. There's no veneer, there's no hardy board, there's nothing else on it. That's completely masonry. And so is the Holiday building and some of the other ones that we've had in the district. So for Ben and I, we do need clarification in making sure that we have the correct interpretation of the code and where the Planning Commission is going, because there's, as you can tell, there's lots of different materials you can use that look like masonry, but that's not giving you a masonry building. And that's all I have. It's just more of a comment.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I just wanted to comment also that if you read they're not permitted uses, the only permitted use is municipal buildings. We said that restaurants and coffee shops with drive-through as an accessory, and this isn't that concept. So it's completely different than what we talked about all of those hours. And that's the reason it's smaller. If you were going to build a real coffee shop like you see in Hugo or Forest Lake, they just built a Starbucks. They're all brick buildings, and they do have drive-through, but the drive-through is an accessory, whereas this is just a drive-through, and it's made out of, like Elizabeth said, wooden frames, and it's not the same. It's not the same construction. And I know that's not what we're talking about, but we never had an opportunity to talk about that.
Okay. Thank you, Barb. Any other comments? Bob? Chris?
Not right this second.
What?
No,
No?
not right
Oh.
now. I need to think a minute. Oh,
Elizabeth's got her hand up again.
Oh,
Can you go in?
go ahead, Elizabeth. She's got her hand up, I can't see her.
No, I can't see any of them either.
Oh, Ben's talking to, I think he's got a flipper on.
I think my hand was up from before.
Oh,
I
wait,
do,
wait, hold on a minute. I think, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I think my hand up was before. I forgot to take my hand down.
Oh, okay.
I can't
All right,
see her.
you have the floor, Chris.
Getting tired by now.
yeah, this is Chris again. Say, Elizabeth, you were just commenting on where we wanted to go and, you know, this not being a masonry building, but it's kind of was my thinking that in this area, we weren't looking at all masonry buildings. I mean, when you're talking 80% masonry, and I think when we looked at the apartment, there was, panel, it wasn't totally masonry building. So can you just kind of refresh our memory on the ordinance in this area? Because I didn't think it was a total masonry ordinance.
This is Elizabeth Mersco, City Administrator. Chris, you are right. Before we change the ordinance, let's talk about the previous ordinance. The previous ordinance was 100% masonry in this area, and then we had the apartment concepts, come in, and at that time we kind of started talking about it wasn't really reasonable to ask an apartment building to be 100% masonry, and I think the consensus was, that's probably too high of a cost to have a 100% masonry building. It was a kind of a throwback from the 70s and 80s where you had all brick buildings. It wasn't architecturally, it wasn't something that was very attractive. And so we started to talk about articulation and different types of materials and color in order to make some interest in the building. And so I think that's where the discussion stemmed from as to what other materials did we think were attractive. And so we did put a mix of materials. But I will tell you that the apartment building, every apartment building that came in had a block base. So the first floor was always block based, and then they had some sort of masonry, you know what I mean? Whether it was veneer, I don't know, but components to each one of the buildings, but there was a block component. When Hy-Vee came in, they also have a masonry brick component. It was 50% of the building, and the rest of the building was, I believe, glass, wood, bamboo, and porcelain was the other one. I don't know if you've seen those panels in quite a number of buildings nowadays. It's a very smooth panel. and they use a porcelain and or cement materials to make those panels. So I think early on we had a blend of materials. I don't know that stone veneer and hardy board were and maybe that was the intent of the planning commission, but I don't know that it's clear in the new code that all of those are acceptable materials to meet the criteria.
To answer your question, Chris?
Well, I think she cleared it up that um, it's a mix of materials, and I'm looking at the ordinance right now with the 80% of the facade of all exterior buildings. It calls out brick, stone, stucco, decorative block, tile, cast stone, and precast textured concrete panels. And then we have accessory materials. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good question, is what was, we went through all this and we did put that, what do we want in that area? I mean, do
You're
we
looking
want
at
to
page
relook
20?
at it? I am.
Yeah.
Page 20 of our city ordinances, yes. And again, it's not saying that I'm against this, because I never thought of something like this, but I think we need to address it, because if we're going to look at these type of buildings or smaller buildings, or we don't want masonry, then I think we don't want to be doing variances every time somebody comes in. That's just not the way we should do things. I mean, if we believe things should be different, then we should change the ordinance, and I believe our city attorney has made that clear multiple times. And if we grant the variance here, and the next place comes in and they're kind of following suit or doing it, then we grant another variance and another variance, then what good are our ordinances? We might as well just go with variances and let people just design whatever they want. So I think we need to decide, like Elizabeth said, which way we want to go. And she said which way the planning commission wants to go, because we are the ones that kind of find the facts and present to the council to come up with a policy making. And I just think we need to look at this carefully when if we're going to allow variances on this or grant that, then we need to definitely look at what we want to do with our ordinances.
Well, and we do have 2 other districts, zoning districts, that allow lesser cement, 70% or below, both the commercial, community commercial, and the general business. So there are, like I say, places that this would fit in better. That's what, my concern is right from the start.
Okay, Greg, you want to say something?
Just as a developer, builder, just a little insight. What most people want in communities is places to sit down and eat. And restaurant buildings in general are all high majority veneers applied to the outside. They do not meet the strict interpretation of masonry building, of a masonry block. So it's an issue cities deal with, because they want a nice stylized building or place to eat, and you want to encourage that. But the materials from the zoning code, Columbus isn't unique. It happens at a lot of cities, having the similar type discussions, because you're not architects, you're not engineers, you don't know how it's put together. So it's something to just be aware of. Some cities go totally the opposite way and make everything a planned unit development and have a list of materials that are acceptable and evaluate case by case on each application, so it's all different. But lastly, and I think Elizabeth or Ben, the same questions about variance and precedence was brought up at the council meeting in December, and the city attorney addressed that this would not be precedent setting because of the spirit of the ordinance. He felt this met the spirit of the ordinance, so it would not be precedent setting. And I agree with them because, you know, hardy board is a cement product, and I think that's really what the intent of a city is I want a strong, durable, long-lasting material. I don't want a cheap building. I want something that's going to hold up, that's going to last. And I don't want somebody to put lights on a building that have extra foot candles and glare into neighbor lots. And that's where our lighting plan shows we meet 0 foot candles at the lot line, and the coach lights aren't really fully addressed in the ordinance, and that's why we have the request in there. So it's a tough call for cities, but that's what we deal with in the development building side.
I just want to ask one quick question here. Is this going to be a corporate, or is this a?
All the Caribous are corporate stores.
Okay, all right.
They're all corporate. They have previously done franchises, but none of these are franchise. They're all corporately run and managed. And
Thank you, Greg. Well, quite a discussion here. I guess we all kind of said our beliefs and feelings, and we have before us a variance request, and it's up to us to make a decision or whatever. I do believe, I think that this variance, we worry too much. Not that I feel like variances aren't evil thing. I think that every time you have a variance, you gotta start worrying about lawsuits or something down the end of the road. I'm not, you know, you're gonna have maybe people come in and say stuff, or I go back to the fish pond deal. That was kind of, you know, they took it to court or whatever. I don't think most things go that way, but that's my feeling on it. Does anybody else have any other discussion on this? Do you want to continue discussion, or I'll make a motion? Do you have anything, Chris? Any more?
I do, and it's more to the city. How do we address this? Because I know you say, and we heard our attorney say precedents, that there is none. I don't believe that. I believe people can make a case out of anything, and I think we have land up there that is very developable, and it's going to be sought after. And we've seen it with the apartment complex as they started down their path, that they kept getting cheaper and cheaper and wanting to change so much, and I don't want to go that route.
That's a good question, and this has been associate planner. I think what you have in front of you is and like Greg had mentioned, that our attorney Bill Griffith had mentioned that you may not be setting precedent with this. And I do think through my review and also another attorney at Larkin and Hoffman, you have a good staff report in front of you that does explain the findings and the hardships, and also why the use that's being proposed is reasonable. But I think to your point, Chris, depending on no matter which way you go, if the Planning Commission does end up moving forward with recommending approval of the variance, this, and Elizabeth can correct me if I'm wrong, it also might be another situation where you could ask for the city council to weigh in on whether or not you think the 3 items I think you noted were, and there might be 4 now, the cleaning up of the lighting ordinance, the point that Elizabeth had made about the clarification on what is masonry, what is the policymaker's intent on masonry, and then the corporate color and percentage of masonry. You could ask the council their determination if they wanted to address that or weigh in on that, and you can make that part of your motion. It can be a separate motion, no matter which way you go on this. But I think that's how you'd address it next, is if it does go into favor that you recommend approval based on the staff report in front of you and the testimony you've heard, you could also make a separate motion that you'd like these other questions to be considered.
Thank you, Ben. and this is Chris once more, I'd just like to go on the record that I bring these up not because I'm against this. It's more concern for the work we've done, for where the city's going, and documenting what we're doing. That's one of the biggest things, and that we're looking at this, because I do believe it's important.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Just for all of us, when we turn our heads and talk away, we can't hear
Oh.
the microphone. So when you were talking to Ben, I couldn't, hear a lot what you said, or even Ben sometimes. But so I did hear what Ben said. If we wanted to make an additional motion to the city council about improving the 4 issues addressed that we're addressing, but we're still back to the variance. So, any comments, or are we all? Well, I'll make the motion, and I move to recommend approval based on adopting the findings of facts 1 through 6 in the Columbus staff report dated February 1, 2022, to the City Council for the variance request to allow a building design of approximately 30% masonry facade coverage with cultured manufactured stone veneer and a preliminary non-earth tone color facade, and installation of decorative coach lights without cutoff luminaries located at vacant property 24-32-22-11-0008 with conditions 1 through 3. So we'll take a vote on this one here, and then we'll make if you want to make another motion, Chris?
You need a second.
Huh?
You need a second.
Right.
Oh,
This is Bob, I'll second.
Okay, any discussions? Take a vote, Chris?
Chris, aye.
Bob, aye.
Ron, aye?
Barb, nay.
Okay. Now, we want to make another, how did you, Ben, I couldn't hear a lot, and
Yeah, no, I apologize. Can you hear me all right now? Right now?
Well, I can, but these masks are terrible.
I think the best way to go about this would be making a motion that you're requesting that the city council allow the planning commission to investigate the 4 areas that you would like to investigate. This is the lighting ordinance, the percentage of masonry required, the definition of masonry, and also the incorporation of corporate colors in the commercial districts. Did I get all of those, Chris?
Can we add one more item, and I'm probably missing some, but building size?
Oh,
I
correct.
think
I
that would
missed
be a good one to add to it.
And I think that and Elizabeth can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it would be requesting the city council to allow the planning commission to investigate these 5 areas.
Okay, Chris, you got that?
I'm going to put the motion out there for what Ben just said. But no, that we have the council, a motion to have the council consider looking at the lighting ordinance, the masonry, the percentage of masonry definition, the building size, and did I miss anything? I'm sure the council will find a few other items to
Colors.
address. Colors would be, yeah, corporate color.
Size of building,
Yep, we got that, so.
masonry,
We got that? Chris?
shrouding, lighting.
You got it, Chris?
So if we got that as a motion, I'll second it. All right? Is there any discussion on that? Having none, we'll take another vote. Why don't you start, Barb?
Nay.
Aye?
Bob, aye.
Chris, aye.
Okay. So, Greg, your issue will be up before the city council on February 9th, 2022 at 6:30. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks for the discussion.
Thank you.
I can't say anything off the record, but I just want to say that we all have different opinions, and I think that's great, and I don't take anything, whatever anybody, I think you did a good job, Chris, bringing up these issues, and now we got them to go to the council and give us some guidance so we can sit down and talk about it.
It's a sign of a healthy community.
Great.
Yep.
Right. Well, we're going to go on to item number 15, Planning Commission organizational discussion. And that means we're going to appoint a chairman, section 3-104.
Oh, I get to nominate Ron to be chairperson.
This is weird.
I'll second that.
Well, I used to like the days when Pam would say, I don't want it, or, you know. Okay, any discussion? Any other nominations? Okay, we'll take a vote.
Chris, aye.
Bob, aye.
Aye, Barb, aye.
Can I vote on this? I better not, so
Abstain.
abstain, but,
We do
I-
need a speech, though,
you need a speech?
an acceptance speech.
Well,
And you have to
I'll
stand.
tell you this, I'll do it for one more year. I don't know where I'll be, I'm getting older and whatever.
And
But
wiser.
we need a co-chairman.
I'd like to recommend Bob.
I second it.
I agree.
Take a vote.
Chris, aye.
Bob, you got to vote.
Bob, abstain.
Ron, aye.
Barb, aye.
See how you get nominated for things?
You do a good job, Bob.
You should have seen how I got nominated in the beginning. We're going to open up item number 6 is a public open forum. Anybody like to get up and give their 2 cents or any comments? On Zoom? Oh, we got the mayor.
Uh-oh.
Just to say, again, I've said it before, but I really mean it. Thank you guys for all the time and the thinking and the shouting and fighting. It's a lot of hard work, and thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Mayor.
Means a lot.
Item number 17 on the agenda, Information Associates Planners Report. Ben?
Yes, I do have one item, just making sure you all can hear me again. I wanted to go over the memo that was sent to you on January 28th regarding kind of the homework, we'll call it, for the joint meeting, which is scheduled for February 16th. The essence of this meeting is just to have every planning commission member and every council member investigate 3 different cities or more. What we tried to do is just arbitrarily break up the alphabet. So just pick a city in one of the 5 states we gave you that start with that letter and see if it addresses home occupations, residential zone businesses, businesses in the residential area, anything like that. One thing that I wanted to clarify is if you do the first city you look up that comes to your mind and you don't happen to see that it allows a residential zone business or a home occupation for that matter, staff would find that information quite valuable because you would still recognize that in some community that is their ordinance. That's that's regulating a residential zone business or a home occupation in that community, is that they don't allow them. So even during your quest to find rules you like or don't like or things you think are relevant, or you could even apply here in Columbus and you see that they don't even allow them, I would still ask that you record that while you're looking. Are there any questions about what the project's asking for?
Yeah, Ben, this is Bob. One of the things that I thought about when the notice came out to us planning commissioners and city council people to make these calls, it seems to me that we need to call relevant sized cities and make sure they're cities and not townships, to see what kind of ordinances are out there available to this. Because if you compare our city of about 5,000 residents compared to a Blaine, and you start asking about their ordinance requirements for home-based businesses, home-zone businesses, I think you're going to get a very much different response than if you call up North Branch up the road that's even a little bit bigger than Columbus. So to me, it makes a difference what kind of response we get based on the size of the city that you're talking to. And I think that we need to be careful how we interpret the results of something that's so far apart and try to draw it into something that's going to create backing for our own decisions related to business owned.
Yep.
And so maybe a point of clarity on that from city staff to us who are doing the surveys would give us a little bit better backing, so we're not really exposing ourselves when we talk to relevant city staff.
What we're really looking for at this stage is, if you're thinking of that wheel again, this is just the data gathering. And it is pertinent to note down what city you did investigate, because it will give us more information as to what's the size, what's the population. I think no matter what you find, every city is going to be different. I used to work with it was a county, but St. Croix County just across the river, and I would argue that as far as proximity to the metro area, the makeup of that county as a whole, the size of the land itself doesn't matter. It's what the rules will let them do. And again, I do, as far as factors of their proximity to the metro area, where they lie with how many commuters they have, and the open space they're allowed, and the lot sizes that they have, if they're on private sewer or water. These all sound very much like Columbus, yet they only allowed minor home occupations. They had the space to do major home occupations. The biggest you could get is selling your own vegetables on your own farm. That was it. I think any information to this point is still pertinent information. I think that's what the intention of staff was. I do agree with you that you don't want to arbitrarily just assign a regulation because you found it that you liked, even if it was more geared towards something that's smaller or a higher population like Blaine, but it still may apply to us in Columbus. We are a very unique community, 48 square miles, yet 30% of it is buildable. And then a portion of that's commercial, and we have the 5-acre lot minimums. There aren't a lot of communities like that. And then again, taking consideration of proximity to the metro area, there's probably 10 communities around here that's like that, and you guys would have so much overlap that 10 of you would come back with the same answers and all investigate North Branch instead of other communities. It is a relevant point though, and if you have some time to do some digging, you could look in Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota for something that is similar size or seems like a similar demographic.
Very good.
Does that kind of answer your question, Bob?
It does, yeah, thanks.
Is that it, Ben?
Yes, thank you.
Elizabeth?
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 19, Planning Commission's report. Chris, you got anything?
I do not.
Bob?
None here.
Barb?
I have nothing.
The only thing I want to say is thanks, Ben, for telling us about that program from League of Cities.
Yeah.
It was just a refresher, but it's good if anybody wants to look at it. In fact, now that they keep it on their library or whatever, we can punch it up and look at it. But that was pretty good. So I need that every once in a while to refresh my memory. Reminder, City Council meeting on February 9th at 2022. Bob, you going to be there?
I'll be there.
Okay, and item number 21, a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to make it? I'll make it.
I'll second.
Anybody want to keep it going? Not hearing any? Let's take a vote.
Chris, aye.
Bye-bye.
Ron, aye.
Barb, aye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.